Perry Mason and his wife had now worked together for over 25 years and had been married for 20 of them. Their life had been a wonderful life together, and neither one of them would have changed anything for nothing. They had two wonderful children, Sally that they adopted when she was just 8 years old. Sally was now working on getting her law degree and hoped that someday she would work with her parents. She was just 23 years old and already knew her way around the courtroom better than most attorneys twice her age. Perry Jr. was now getting ready to attend high school and wanted to become a private investigator. His friend was now working on his father's old agency with his mom, the Paul Drake Investigators. His name was Paul Drake Jr., and he hoped to one day be as famous and as honest and hardworking as his dad had been. Life was good for the small family, and they now lived in the same home for their entire marriage. Even with all the friends and many get-togethers the family had gone through the years, the home had kept this warm, comfortable feeling. Perry Mason was due to have another busy day in court. He was working to keep another client from the future of the long prison sentence. Once again, his client was innocent. He knew it, and it was up to him to prove that somebody else was the murderer. Della was busy that morning, too. After all, she had two young people to get ready for the day, and they would have to be in the courtroom along with her husband in just 2 hours herself. She took on the task with the same amount of patience and dignity that she has always done, and breathed a sigh of relief as she waved goodbye to Perry Jr. as he got onto the school bus. She would now have to take a small break before she herself headed to work. As she looked around the kitchen, she smiled. She had a very good, happy life. Fred was now in his office, too, and looking into the past that he didn't want to think about. However, he had seen both Marcus and Tom many times in the years, and he had never had such a serious looks on their face as he did this morning. He welcomed them in, and as they pulled their chair up to the desk, he took a deep breath. Fred, as you know, I've been working on your co-worker's Ralph murder case from the beginning, Tom started. It has come to our attention that perhaps you know something about what had occurred the evening before at your office that you have not been forthcoming with us on. At this point, Fred suspected what had happened. Jane had been trying to get him to go to the police and be forthright with what had happened right before and tell the truth, but he had been frightened. Even he wasn't sure if Ralph had hit his head during the argument. Yes, he had struck the young man. Yes, he was much younger and stronger at the time, but they had made up, and as hotheads do. And when Ralph had left the bar, he had not mentioned having a headache. He decided it was time that the truth be told. And so he told his friends, the police, what had happened that night. It was just an argument between two men who were friends. We did get physical, but Brian Barnes stopped the fight. We went on to have a good time at the bar afterward. Ralph and I never discussed the argument before. Once the company was sold, we see that you made quite a profit. Was there anyone else that stood to lose if the company was not sold? Marcus asked him. Fred thought about it for a minute and said, no, this is a small company that was honestly losing money at the time. We could barely keep ourselves afloat. If the buyout hadn't occurred and been offered to us, we would have gone out of business in a year or two after anyways. The sale was not our only hope of making ends meet. The company needed to be modernized to compete with foreign companies, and we had been turned down by the bank, Fred told him. This is all information that Tom had found out during his initial investigation. The company was behind in its bills and hadn't been turned down at the bank. At the time, Mr. Myers was the loan officer there, and there was talk that he turned down the loan from a local company because he did not like the workers. It was understanding that there had been a company that had been around for many years and was of good standing, and many people felt that his decision was vengeful. Mr. Myers was still alive, but he was now in his late 70s. Finally, after all these years, there was some new aspect on the case. Tom and Marcus both thought of Sherry and contemplated calling her to let her know what was going on, but they both decided that they would wait until they got more information. Fred sat back at his desk, visibly shaken. He had held on to this information for so long. Now the police are going to be going through it with a fine-tooth comb. He thought that he should get a lawyer, and a good one. He thought of Perry Mason. Mason had helped him out a few years ago on a case involving a copyright issue, and picked up the phone. Della was just entering the office when the phone rang. She picked it up and was surprised to hear the familiar voice. She made the appointment. Fred would indeed need a lawyer. End of chapter 5.